The technology we use in our everyday lives changes constantly, and of course, our vehicles are becoming more and more tech savvy as well.
Are they ever? Consumer trends and technology expert Todd Townsend joins us this morning. We're not just talking about features. There are autonomous and electric vehicles out there right this minute.
That is absolutely true. It's all coming together very quickly here, Tim, and there's a couple reasons why. And for people that aren't really familiar with this story yet, I just wanted to give a really quick primer on why electric. We're hearing about electric cars. Right. Why is that a big deal? Well, electric cars, even though they're complicated in a software sense, and we're going to talk about batteries in a minute, the actual technology to make them move forward, the motor technology, is much, much simpler than a gasoline vehicle, even one from 20 or 30 years ago. There's a lot less parts to deal with. So in the future, in the very near future, when we have these electric cars at cheap prices, you won't have to go in for maintenance anymore. There's no oil changes. They last much, much longer. You don't have to do all these normal things. They're very cheap to own and keep. So that picture you're seeing on your screen is a normal, I think that's a Chevy Corvette engine pulled apart. That's just the motor. That's not all the extra stuff like the gas tanks and the emission controls. You can see all those parts. And then if you go to an electric motor itself, it's much, much simpler. It's one or two small pieces, one moving part inside, and I think we'll see that in a minute. That's actually a Tesla drivetrain. That's the actual motor in a Tesla Model S. You see how simple that is. There's one piece of metal there. It spins through a magnet like an electric motor. So the point is electric cars are much easier to manage. They're cheaper to build, and they last a long time. So that's why we want to go electric. But we couldn't do that for a long time. We haven't been able to do it on a mass scale yet because the cost of the batteries has been so expensive and to give you the range you want. So a lot of technologies come together in the last several years to bring that battery cost way down. What you're seeing on your screen there now, you don't worry about all the details. The important thing to look at there is down as that graph goes to the bottom, you see everything going really low to the bottom there, and the green dots on the bottom and this is from 2 years ago, where the estimated battery prices that Tesla had, and when you hit that orange line at the bottom there, it's cheaper than gasoline for a car, and we're very quickly headed there. And once that happens, there'll be no reason to buy gasoline cars anymore for anybody globally. And we're headed in that direction very quickly because of where battery technology is going in the last 5 or 6 years.
And you say very quickly, and you mean very quickly.
Yeah, so it's going to take a while for the fleet average, say in the United States, to turn over, because believe it or not, we might think, oh, I get a new car every 2 or 3 years if you're lucky. But the average age of a vehicle on the road in the United States is about 11 and a half years if you average it globally. So it takes a while for the cars to turn over. Right. But what you're going to see is as costs come down, the availability of new electric cars that have the range you want at prices people can afford are starting to happen this year and going to accelerate very quickly. So over the next 15 years or so, you're going to see this uptake on passenger electric vehicles go like crazy.
Now, let's talk about autonomous vehicles.
Yeah.
So the self-driving cars is what we're talking
Correct.
about. Are those going to become a way of the very near future? I mean, how's that looking?
Yeah, and so the graphic that was just on the screen there with the graph going up, and the reason I'm showing that is what that is computing power. It's a special type of computing power called the GPU. Now, we heard of the CPU in our computer, right? It's the thing that makes it work. That blue line on the bottom shows CPU power growth over the last 5 or 6 years. That green line is what's called the GPU growth. And if you were watching Bridge Street when I was on last time, we talked about exponential curves, and you see how that green line's shooting up really fast, and that's about 2 years old as well. That's the type of computing power that makes these self-driving cars possible, and it's gotten very, very powerful and very, very cheap over the last just few years.
So how does it work though if you're going to have self-driving vehicles on the road with like human drivers?
That is an awesome question. That is an awesome question, and it's going to be a hybrid system at first. So what I predict, and a lot of people predict will happen, is you're going to have what are called these like super autopilots at first, where you'll still be in control of the car on the interstate, but it can basically drive itself, and you just have to kind of sit there. In major cities like New York City, I could see parts of Manhattan being blocked off in the not too distant future, where only fully self-autonomous cars are allowed because they can be mapped out and be very safe, and they'll just be like taxis. They're very, very cheap for you to use.
It would probably be more efficient in a city like New York.
Much more. So this is going to change everything. The stat is something like over 50% of all the paved surface area in the city of Los Angeles is for parking lots. And when you don't need a car sitting there all the time, and the autonomous car can pick you up and drive you and drop you off and leave, you don't need parking lots. So this is going to change everything. It's going to change transportation for the world. And the cool thing is we're right at that point where it's all coming together and going to happen very quickly over the next decade plus.
Does it make you feel a little Jetsons?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Meet George Jetson. Anyway, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
So lovely to chat.